Jesus talked about a love that was hypocritical when he said, you say it is korban when you don't look after your mother or father and you come and give your gift at the altar. So instead of spending your hard-earned money or whatever you've got by way of something you can give to your parents, for example, many people were actually going to the altar and giving what they should be giving to their families on the altar of God, because that was more important, and that was their way of saying, well, I love God and I love my family and I love the people around me, but this is what I've got to do. And of course that is a hypocritical kind of way of loving, because that's not really loving people, is it? And it's not really loving God, because God says we're to love other people. How can you say you love God who is unseen if you don't show your love to people who are seen, to your fellow man? So that's what this is all about. This is a different kind of way of life. This is not the world's way of life. The world's way of life is so totally different from this. The world says, don't get mad, get even.
Yeah.
That's not what Jesus is saying. Jesus is saying something different. And the Apostle Paul is following Jesus and showing us how we are to be in this world. So when we look at these things, when we love without hypocrisy, we abhor what is evil. Something that's evil when it comes to love is in terms of that kind of pretend love. I mean, we see it on our films, TV screens all the time, don't we? This kind of, when someone comes up and goes, mwah, mwah, what's that? What is that? Give someone a real good hug, or give them a kiss on the cheek, or tell them how much you really care about them. Show how much you care about them by doing something for them. But all this mwah business, I mean, it's just nonsense, really. It's so unreal. It's so false. And that's the kind of love, really, that we have in the world, generally. People don't love others, really. They don't know what real love is. They don't understand love. That's why so many relationships break down, because people don't understand how to love other people. It's very false. It's a very selfish love, because we are all sinners saved by grace. But we have to step up. We have to look at the love that God had, the love that stretched out his arms for us on the cross and took all that pain and punishment on his shoulders. That was love. That was real love for us. To die for us. And when we look at marriage, we see the same love. We're told that husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And he gave up his life for the church, for us. And husbands are told to give up their lives for their wives. That's very, very difficult. And wives are told to submit, respect their husbands. That's another sermon altogether.
Yes.
That's another message altogether.
Amen.
We'll talk about that at a different time. But the whole point is, the world doesn't understand the love of God. And we need to understand the love of God. We need to get with the program. We need to engage in what God says love's all about. We need to understand that love means that we abhor evil. that evil aspect of love that is not really love at all. And in our love we cling to what is good. We work on loving. You know, love is a choice. It's not all, fluffy feelings and fuzzy feelings. We don't get the warm fuzzies, That's something else. We choose to love. You make a choice to love someone, what's normal? God chose to love you and I when we were very unlovely. Before I became a Christian, I was very unlovely. You might think I'm very unlovely now, but I was very unlovely before I became a Christian. And you have to think to yourself, while I was in that condition, and in effect, we were hating God, really, before we become believers. We were not loving God, that's for sure. We were doing anything else other than follow God. We weren't accountable to God. We didn't want to hear what God said. We weren't interested in God whatsoever. And you could say that we could be even counted with those people that nailed him on the cross. Before we learned to love him. Before we understood his love for us. And so, choosing to love is quite an important point. Choosing to love someone is the way of the Christian. Looking for something, looking for the positive, looking to encourage your brother or sister, looking for someone in that person to love. We've even talked about this in the counselling, haven't we? This unconditional positive regard. See, I call it love. But the secular humanists can't call it love. They have to dilute it, and of course it isn't necessarily love to them because love means something else to them. But that unconditional positive regard, to me, that fits in very, very well with my idea of love and grace. Because grace is what Jesus has imparted to us. And grace means free, unmerited love. We don't deserve that love. We don't deserve the love that Jesus showed us. But he gave us that love anyway. He chose to love us. And we must choose to love others. Otherwise we're just clanging gongs, we're told in the New Testament. We don't want to be clanging gongs. We want to be people who mean what we say and say what we mean. And so when it says be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love, in honour, giving preference to one another, that does not mean selfishness. One of the things that somebody taught me quite early on was when they said RTS. It used to annoy me to start with when I heard these words because the person was actually quite sensitive and passionate about being kind to people. And the words mean reverse the situation. How would you feel in that situation if somebody treated you that way? If you feel that you are not being treated fairly, it's very difficult, isn't it? So just trying to work out, how would you feel in that situation? Do unto others as you would have done unto you. It's the same thing, really. So, when you're thinking about yourself, when you're feeling angry or upset with somebody and you feel a little bit bitter or resentful, think RTS. Think reverse the situation. What would they feel like? What would you, if you were in their shoes and you were being like that with them, what do you think you'd feel like? And sometimes that changes our whole idea of what we're doing with other people.